Hey, this is Nicole Kelly, host of Loud and Proud. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
This is Rachel Mullins, host of No Filter Friday, here on Public House Media. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media. Once you're done with this episode, I hope you'll come check out my new show, No Filter Friday, where we talk about all of the sexual misconduct allegations swirling around Hollywood. A new show drops every Friday at 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes so you'll never miss an episode of No Filter Friday. Thanks again for checking out the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to Beauties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy and you probably are too. This is Emily, and here I am today with Lindsay, and we're here to talk nerdy to you. Now, growing up, Lindsay and I grew up throughout the 90s, and we were blessed with many wonderful things, from gizmos and toys and that sort of things, but also a plethora of awesome and kind of not so awesome cartoons. Some of them are still running, some of them are finished forever, maybe, and some of them have actually come back. And we are going to talk about some of those shows that were our favorites and some of the interesting fan theories that are behind those shows. So let's get into some of them. I have a few favorites, and then Lindsay is going to talk about her favorites. So let me just get started here. I started off with Dexter's Lab because, first of all, for those of you who know me in real life, you know that I was a science teacher, a chemistry teacher for a couple years. And so, like, science is my thing. I love it. So good. And so Dexter's Lab, like, really hit it for me, and it aired from 96 to 2003. And there's this really weird fan theory about Dexter's Lab and why he had to have a secret lab. And so I found this on Reddit from a deleted member. It says that his lab is a secret that, it's a secret because his sister Dee Dee accidentally blew up his whole family, except for Dexter, and then Dexter, using his super genius abilities, recreated them to the best of his ability, but they're so, like, really dumb. Like, obviously, if you watch the show, his parents are, like, they're very, very unintelligent. And so
I think that's kind of the point of that show, though, is to kind of emphasize how intelligent he is, as opposed to how, so it's kind of exaggerated.
Yes, I would agree with that. It's an exaggeration of Dexter's genius as opposed to an exaggeration of their stupidity. Right. I think that makes a lot more sense. But the theory was kind of, like, interesting to read. So if you look up Fan Theories Dexter's Lab on Reddit, you'll find that one. It was kind of interesting to take a look at. But one that I really loved, a 90s show I really loved, was Animaniacs. And also kind of a side show from that, Pinky and the Brain. So good. Gotta love it. From 1993 to 1998. And what's really cool is Tom Rieger, or is it Ruger? I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. But at any rate, the creator of the show made a Reddit account and actually took questions from fans. And so there were a ton of fun facts about the show, like how some of the jokes that made it through to production, they didn't intend to leave in there, but nobody, like, caught them. And so there's, like, some slight innuendo that's in there, and other jokes that they just thought were hilarious and didn't know if they would make the cut or not, and they did. And so that ended up just being some of the biggest jokes of all time. The three main characters of Animaniacs were actually modeled after his children. So that's kind of cool. He had 3 boys, and so I guess Dot, he just wanted to have a girl character, so he just made his youngest the inspiration for the girl, because he had 3 boys. But it works out. It was pretty cool reading through, because that's on Reddit as well. And so if you look up Tom Ruegger, Ruegger, you can find that whole thread and just read through all of that interesting, like, just really cool questions from fans and then his actual responses, which is super awesome. I love it when creators do that and you can actually have a dialogue with them. 'Cause then, you know, it makes the show a little bit more real, actually. And actually one of the questions on there was specifically about Pinky and the Brain, because there's a theory that Pinky is actually the smart one and the Brain is actually the dumb one. But Tom was like, in a pinch, I'd rather have the Brain on my team than Pinky, just so you know. I'm like, okay.
Well, and what's cool too about him doing that particular thread is that he was able to make himself more relatable too. So you always think that these comic writers and artists are so untouchable, but having actually met a couple of really cool guys at a few conventions, they're not only like super relatable, but they're so super like cool. Like nice. It's so easy to really enjoy their work, but then to realize that these people are not only just like you, it makes your dreams that much more attainable, as long as you're able to dream big. And it makes it so that it's something that's much more relatable to each individual person. So I find that really cool that he did that.
Yeah, like they're real people too. It's really cool to like, you know, especially if you have like a personal, not to say like idol necessarily, but somebody you really look up to and you kind of aspire after. If you like meet them in real life and they seem larger than life, but you realize they're just like a regular person too. Exactly. So that's really, really, really cool. I love it. It's awesome.
And there's no one that is not our age where you can't walk up to them and say, okay, well, what are we doing today, Brain? So I totally love that you brought up this show, because it's something that's very like, even now we can still tell each other we're going to take over the world. And that is a Pinky and the Brain thing that we can relate to every day.
Exactly. Same thing we do every night.
Yes. Same thing we do every day. Absolutely.
It's great. Oh, I love it. All right. So another show, again, on the science side of things, is the Magic School Bus, which is awesome. I love it. I loved that show when it was first out in 94 through 97. And I'm really enjoying it now that the remake is out on Netflix. I think they did a really nice job with it. And I'm excited to kind of see where things go.
You have to tell me the difference between the two shows, though. Do you remember being little and like wanting to watch every single show and wanting to I remember that specifically, and especially like the callers that would call in to talk to the kids at the end of the show. The new one. They do. Okay.
They do.
That was something I really wanted to make sure they kept.
No, I love that they kept that, because there are some things in every episode of Magic School Bus where they have to cut corners of science in order to make something work properly. Like, so they have the callers that come in and they ask those questions, and usually in the new series, it's the original Miss Frizzle answering the questions, because in this, I don't know if you know this, but
I don't.
You'll find out if that's fine. If you haven't seen this, listeners, in the very first episode, you find out right away that the original Miss Frizzle has become a professor, and so she's going to be doing research and being a university professor. So she's no longer their teacher anymore, and so her sister is the new Miss Frizzle, and she looks almost exactly like Miss Frizzle, but she's a few years younger, and it's really cool because then at the end of the episode, the callers call in, and instead of talking to a producer of the show, which still makes sense from the original series, they talk to the original Miss Frizzle, and she answers all those questions, which is super awesome.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. Now, do we know, is it still the same voice, or is it just someone who's supposed to sound like Miss Frizzle?
You know, I don't remember, and I think I looked it up and I totally forgot. If you guys know if that's the original Miss Frizzle voice, let us know. Love to know. And even the sister Miss Frizzle kind of sounds like her, but she's her sister, so obviously is not exactly the same. So that's definitely a different voice actor. But I don't know if the original Miss Frizzle is still the same voice or not. We would have to do
All right, now I have another question. You being a science teacher, is the science pretty sound in the new show?
So far, yes. I've only seen the
Okay.
first 5 episodes though, but yes. The 5th episode I loved so much. It was great. They did atomic structuring and electrons and oh my goodness, they did a really good job with that. Even at a young kid level. My 3-year-old was watching it and she was engaged.
Awesome.
It was really cool.
Do they get in depth with that particular episode? Because, there's electron clouds and stuff, too, that we never learned about when we were that little. Really?
They zoomed into the atomic level and showed the electron clouds. That was the very start of it. I know. I'm like, I love it. They're doing particles. Subatomic particles. So great. So, yeah.
I always felt so
5.
gypped when we went through elementary school and we had electrons, protons, and neutrons. And then we get into high school and they're like, oh, there's also all of this extra stuff that we did not tell you before. Right. And I was like, wait a minute, I have to relearn this now? Yeah. That's really cool that they're getting more in depth.
It's like the bridge. It's the bridge from simple to complex, which is beautiful. We need that. It's beautiful. So yeah, I really hope that the rest of the episodes I watch are consistent like that. So, yeah, because I've only seen, I think it was the first 5, maybe 6 episodes so far. So far, I'm loving it. So,
but did you ever go to school and there was a substitute teacher that day, and so they busted out an episode of Bill Nye the Science Guy or the Magic School Bus?
Oh, yeah. Well, we totally
that happened all the time for us, too.
We did, even in physics in high school, we watched the sound episode of the original Magic School Bus because it did a really good job explaining how sound works. Right. So we didn't even have a sub that day. Someone was just like, hey, if I can get the DVD of this episode, will we watch it in class? Yeah, sure. It's applicable and it's, less work for the teacher. So it worked.
I'm sure somebody was grading papers that day.
Yeah, probably. Hey, teachers need that time, man. The struggle is real. But also a fun little fan theory about the original Magic School Bus series is that Miss Frizzle is a time lady, which I find fun and interesting. Sometimes they'll, maybe the Magic School Bus is her TARDIS, and
Oh, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that could work.
I could see that.
I could totally see that.
Well, and it changes sizes, and it goes places that aren't necessarily a place that you could possibly just go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could see that.
It's feasible. I haven't thought a whole ton about it. I just was like, hey, that's a cool thing.
Sure. It's a super special TARDIS if you think about it, though, because doesn't it also get manipulated into different animals and things?
Yeah, well,
too?
that's probably just with the cloaking device, and the cloaking device on the TARDIS in Doctor Who is broken. So...
Sure, that makes sense. Right.
So it could really be disguised however it wants to be.
Because her TARDIS would be intact. Yes, right. Absolutely.
Exactly. So, I mean, totally. I'd be down for it unless somebody has a glaring, no, obviously because this, she can't be. I'd be down for it, sure. Love Magic School Bus, though. And so I think it was it maybe this past fall where Netflix released the new revamped series. So the animation
it was
in
really
the new
recent.
series is, the animation is a little bit more modernized, so it's not quite as grainy as the 90s one, which is good. But all of the kids are still the same kids for the most part, except for maybe 1 or 2 students, and they look older. They're the next year older. So yeah, not a ton of time has passed in Magic School Bus world.
There is always a lot of science to learn, so I suppose that's one way to do it. Absolutely.
Totally. I'd also totally be down for a history version of Magic School Bus where they travel back in time to learn about historical events and stuff. That'd be pretty sweet. I
think so too. I think that would be really cool, actually.
Yeah.
And can you think of just all of the things that they could do? There's entire years' worth of historical stuff they could do, and depending on the producers and how much they want to get into depth about different things, I think you just got $1 million idea there.
Hey, well, okay, I have to give credit to my friend Melissa who posted this on Facebook last week or something. But I think she's totally right. I would totally be down for that. Yeah.
I would too. Do you remember that one show? Oh my gosh, Wishbone? Wishbone
I love
did
Wishbone.
that.
Wishbone
Yes.
was great because it took literature and like he was in the story and you would follow him in the story and it was so good. Yes. Loved it. Yes, that's how I learned who Joan of Arc was.
I'm pretty sure I learned
and
about
Dr.
Shakespeare
Jekyll
that
and
way.
Mr. Hyde, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I learned all this classic literature that way, and then I never read the books for real, and now I'm sad about it. So I should probably do that maybe. But anywho, next show I have up, and this is the last show that I will talk about, is the Powerpuff Girls. My sisters and I loved watching this show. It came out in 98 and aired until 2005. And then, actually, in 2016, there was a re-release of the show. Or not re-release. I guess it was like a reprise or something like that. And it didn't seem to go over all that well because they did not do another season in 2017, it looks like. But from what I saw, there was like 39 episodes in 2016 that came out. And I don't know really what happened. I didn't watch them. But I do remember that it came out, and I do remember people talking about it. So
yeah, I remember there being some hype about it too. Like maybe there was another Powerpuff Girl or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It always seems like the stuff that really entertained us when we were little, it has to be changed a little bit to entertain kids nowadays. I feel like Powerpuff Girls, you go to a convention, you see everybody always dressing up as the people still dress up as the Powerpuff Girls. People still dress up as what was their dad's name? Was he the
Professor? The Professor. I think he was just called the Professor.
I think so too. I think he was just the Professor. Mm-hmm. You never see anybody dress up as that monkey guy.
Oh yeah, Mojo Jojo.
Yes, nobody ever dresses up as Mojo Jojo. But you can usually see people dressed up that way. What I always thought was interesting was, those kinds of things transcend time. So we still see a lot of that. But I do feel like they added a Powerpuff Girl or something when they had the 2016 launch. So I feel like that might have either gone over really well or maybe it didn't. Maybe they're just delayed. Who knows, really? Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, because maybe something happened with casting and they had to postpone their release of the next season. I have no idea. So if anybody knows, that
maybe
let us
we'll
know.
Find out.
Yeah.
Yes.
That'd be good. But yeah, so there were some really odd theories about the Powerpuff Girls. And so I found them on fantheories.wikia.com. You can just type in the Powerpuff Girls. And personally, I'm not a huge fan of a lot of them, so I'm not really going to talk about it. But I just really enjoyed the show because it was just fun for me to see three girls kind of being superhero-ish. And, I have two sisters, so it was perfect because me and my sisters could relate to each one of them in different ways.
Emily, which Powerpuff Girl were you?
I was Blossom. I have blue eyes. That's kind of how we decided it. But then, see, my one sister has green eyes and the other has brown. So we actually changed it a little bit because my sister that has green eyes was Blossom because she was kind of that personality. And my sister that had brown eyes was Buttercup because she was more that personality. But I also related with Buttercup as well. So, like, we kind of interchanged a little bit. Okay. But...
See, it's funny that you say that because we're at risk of telling everybody how old we are.
I know, right?
I'm a little older than you. My little sister is 4 years younger than me, and my older sister is 8 years older than me. So even though I have two sisters as well, we never did that with the Powerpuff Girls.
Oh.
To be fair, we never did that with really any show because my older sister was really too cool for us. And my little sister, I had to not like her shows because she was my little sister.
Right.
So,
it's a rule.
Exactly. Were there any other fan theories on them?
There were some of them were kind of just really weird about how, like, the professor is a creeper, and so he created these three girls because he's creepy.
No. Okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm not gonna go into detail on that one.
Speaking of really like weird dark theories, my first show that I listed was Rugrats. Mm-hmm. Rugrats came out in 1990 and it had a really good run. It ran until 2006.
Yeah.
So my little sister being 4 years younger than me, we had the same kind of thing where I really liked the show. She really liked the show. And it lasted a long time. But, and everyone knows Rugrats, Nicktoons, the cartoon misadventures of four babies. And everyone remembers Angelica and how she was this snotty older cousin. And we have all these misfit characters, Phil and Lil, Tommy, Stu Pickles, and everyone had their own element that they brought in, you know, wackiness, wiliness, Chucky's dad being the germ freak and all the phobias with Chucky that he kind of instilled on him. And there was one fan theory that I read, and it was, I think it was just like a Huffington Post or a Wiki post, but it was about how it was so dark. And so some of these shows, like, I just feel like the writers really were just giving us these cool kids shows. And I don't know if these fan theories came up just because we got older and we wanted there to be this strange, demented meaning for these things. The theory was that Angelica that she had made everything up, that she had made all of these characters up because she was like an only child and she was super isolated. So she had this extremely hyperactive imagination. And I mean, I think they all had extremely hyperactive imagination.
Yeah, I think they all do. To a certain
degree, I truly believed,
Yeah.
I truly believe they were just a bunch of kids that happened to be stuck together and having, you know, this crazy time together.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Reptar and Angelica's doll Cynthia. And you think about it, the show ran for 16 years. I don't remember when they got older and when the animation got older and more advanced. I wasn't watching then, but I imagine that everything kind of they could have really gone so far with the imagination and the ability to dream with those characters. And as they got older, didn't Tommy have a little brother?
I don't know. I honestly, my parents, I don't know if they watched the show and decided we couldn't watch it or what, but they never allowed us to watch the show. Yeah. I don't know if they just didn't like the term Rugrats, and so they decided that we shouldn't watch the show ever, or
maybe
what the deal was.
Maybe they thought it meant something else than what it was. And you know, it's funny. I think my folks actually called myself and my siblings Rugrats. I think that's actually happened. So I feel like that's part of what made it kind of relatable for us.
Sure.
But I do feel like there was advancement in the show where the kids got older, and I don't think it was a reprisal of the show so much as like the kids just got older in the television show.
I remember that there were a couple movies that came out too, which I think they were older in as well. Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think so.
Okay.
All right. So my next show. I risk telling everybody how old I am because what happens is, you know, you come home from school, you race home, you turn on the TV, and you watched whatever was on and you vegetated in front of the television until mom and dad told you couldn't. In my case, it was more likely my older siblings, probably my older sister telling me that we had to turn the TV off and do whatever. But I remember these next three shows that I have are the like television lineup. The first one's DuckTales.
Love it.
That one actually only aired like 1987 to 1990, but it was in reruns for who knows how long.
Yes, it was, because I remember watching that on like Disney Channel.
Yes.
And that was definitely after 1990.
Yes. And knowing all of the songs
it.
too, like the theme song that came out. And so DuckTales was based on Uncle Scrooge. It was Scrooge McDuck, and he had this fortune and three grandnephews, and they were one of Disney's takes on their characters from comic books and things. So I think every once in a while you see Darkwing Duck in these.
He pops in there every so often.
And he had his own show too. And the gist of the show was that the three grandnephews were seeking out treasure or trying to thwart the efforts of villains that were trying to steal their uncle's fortune. So it was really...
It was like really comical too, because half the time they had no idea what they were doing, and
exactly,
it was so good. Yeah,
I think my favorite part was just like the theme song where you see Scrooge McDuck like swimming through his treasure.
Yes,
and
I always
the
wanted
boys
to do
following
that.
him. Yes. Oh, didn't it look like so much fun?
Yes.
And it was like a slide of money and treasure. I always loved that. And who doesn't know the theme song from DuckTales? And this one actually was reprised in late summer of 2017, where we actually got to have David Tennant. He played Scrooge McDuck.
Yes.
But I need to ask the listeners where you find this show, because
where do you watch it?
Need to watch it, and I can't find it on Netflix. I can't find a place that I can actually, unless someone wants to send it to me. I don't know how I'm gonna get to be able to watch these.
Find it. Oh my goodness!
But I did see like there was a video of all of the people, and they were rather famous singing the theme song, and we got all excited, and then I never heard about it again. So I'm like, I was looking on IMDb trying to find information about it, and they have 13, 14 episodes. So I need to see them, definitely.
Yeah.
My next show.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So if someone knows where to find those, please let me know. The next one was Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. I have that song in my head now too. They had
so good.
Chip and Dale were chipmunks, and the Rescue Rangers were rodents, mice.
Small creatures.
Small creatures, and they took care of crimes that were too small for the police to handle. The theme song actually says something about them. No crime is too big or too small for them.
Yes.
I think this one, I remember watching it when I was little and thinking that Chip and Dale reminded me a lot of the movie The Rescuers with Bianca and Bernard. You remember how Bernard's like in love with Bianca, and that's the movie. But there's a fan theory about that one where they said that Chip and Dale weren't allowed to be in the Rescuers because they were chipmunks.
Oh, instead of mice.
So, right, and so and then there's other people in there, or other rodents in there too, like Monterey Jack. He's actually like the ginormous guy with the headset, and he had done. There's these really fun theories if you look online about him. He did something that was frowned upon by the RAS, which is the Rodent Association, for the Rescue Rangers. And so there's a couple different things. Everything does really seem kind of hodgepodge about it. The cool thing is that they like secretly rescue humans in a world where rodents have built a hidden civilization. So there's this whole other life going on that nobody knows about. And so they talk about maybe Bernard and Bianca abide by the orders of the RAS committee. The Rescue Rangers are more freelance. They take the odd jobs.
I feel like that fits. I like it.
Yeah. Well, I just remember it being like the coolest show.
Yes.
I just loved all of these shows coming on in a row after each other, and how much fun they were to watch. There was like a mobster bad guy.
Oh, I'm forgetting
Fat
who
Cat.
that was.
His name was Fat Cat.
Yes.
And he had some kind of little cronies that followed him around. But all of the chase scenes and everything were real comical and real slapstick. And it was just so entertaining to watch, and to even go back and look at what we were watching when we were little. It was a lot of fun. The last show I wanted to talk about was Tailspin. I don't know if you remember Tailspin or not.
I love Tailspin. Yes.
So Tailspin had some characters that we knew and loved from the Jungle Book, where Baloo was actually, they give them much more exciting names in this show, but Baloo is a bush pilot, and he has his plane, and he lives his pretty freestyle freelance life like he did in the Jungle Book. But that gets him into trouble because he is going to get his plane taken away from him. There's a lady named Rebecca who comes in, and I think she's supposed to be like an attractive character.
Mm-hmm.
She comes in and she starts up the company Hire for Hire. So they start transporting things, and that gets them into all kinds of fun. And you remember Louie the monkey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to be like you guy, right?
Yes, absolutely. He owns a bar, and so I did read a really cool. Actually, I didn't read. I watched a video on YouTube of a gentleman who was talking about how the characters in Tailspin were from. They're like when animals rise up against the humans and take over the world.
Okay.
And there's actually mention in the show of the Great War being 20 to 30 years prior to when this is taking place and they're in Cape Suzette. And what's really cool is I found out that this show was kind of thrown together. It was kind of just like a hodgepodge, toss it together because they had to make a show kind of thing. They met a deadline. They had no idea what they were going to do. Cape Suzette, Crepe Suzette, plays on words and things that little kids would never understand. But the cool thing is when you get to watching the show, the style of the planes are very like 1930s. So I think they might actually be referring to like the Great War being like World War One or something.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, that would make sense.
But it's really cool because they have anti-aircraft fire that hits Baloo. There's a kid who is a air rider, kite rider kind of guy.
Oh, cool, like a glider sort of thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
It was really cool to go to see this show and to see how to find out not only did they throw it together, but it was really well done. It was a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah.
So, and the attire that the guys are wearing in the show too is very 1930s-ish.
Yeah.
The hairstyle that Rebecca has is kind of pin-up, curled over, very, very fun. Just really cool to go back and see that show and, to get these songs in my head and stuck there and to see what people were talking about. I personally debunked that, theory. The characters in Tailspin even don't know what a television is. So I honestly think it's more in the past than it would be in the present. But how interesting is it that we had so many shows growing up that were animals, that had
a lot of them.
Human characteristics and human interactions with each other and jobs and things too. In Tailspin, Shere Khan is actually a business guy. He's a tiger in a business suit.
Right.
So it's really cool to think all these shows that we were watching, we were really idolizing all these animals and stuff.
Yeah. Oh wow, personified. I mean, and maybe that was their way of, personifying, taking those characters and making them represent people from real history too. Right. Yes, absolutely. What I thought was really cool about a lot of the shows that we were watching when we were little, in contrast to what we watch nowadays or what our children are watching nowadays. And I've got a 10-year-old daughter, so I'm very aware of everything that's on television. And I know that you're watching it too and just trying to find out what's okay to let your kids watch and what's not. And I thought it was very interesting that the pace of the shows that we watched when we were little is very different than what you can watch on television today. Yeah, it really is.
I almost had to check a few times just to make sure that what I was watching wasn't slowed down because it felt a little bit slower. It's not that I wasn't captivated because I totally was, but everything felt very slowed down and enunciated and able to really soak it in because it was going a little slower. The characters were walking a little slower. They were talking a little slower. There was sound effects and music that were associated with just pieces, not jumbled together or going too quickly.
Yeah. It's almost like they were more careful and more deliberate with the shows. And now it's more like, get them engaged, get them engaged, get them engaged. Don't lose their attention ever for a second.
Well, you were talking too about possibly when credits are showing nowadays on television, we are bombarded by other shows before the credits are even done. And I remember watching the scene while the credits were playing when these shows, when we were growing up in the 90s, were playing. I remember watching the plane go by behind the lettering. So
exactly.
I think it's interesting.
The outro sequence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you would watch, because even though you know it's the same outro sequence every time, you still watch it.
Yes, because, I mean, there was nothing else to watch.
Right, exactly. But then I also remember, and I don't remember which networks this happened on, but I do remember that over time when I was maybe like 10 or 12 or 13, some networks started to transition where they would take the credits and make it a little tiny square, and then they would show like the next commercial or something like that.
Right.
Or they would show like, here's an interlude between the shows about some show that's coming up next. And now they do like all of that at once. They have like a little thing popping up in the bottom corner saying like, watch this show on Tuesdays at 7 in the morning. And, you know, and then during the credits, they're talking about another show that's coming up or a brand new show that's starting next week. And I'm like, how do you keep track? And
or the movie that's going to be on Friday night. Like,
yeah, right? I'm like, man, give each thing its time. For my 3-year-old to see all of that all at once, and for her to realize that, or to not realize that that's like a bombardment, like, I don't know, it just bugs me.
Well, why don't you guys tell us what bugs you? Talk nerdy to us.
Yeah.
What's your favorite 90s cartoon or fan theory about one? Find Beauties and Headcanons on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr to share your nerdy topic suggestions with us. Subscribe to this podcast and others from Public House Media on iTunes, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and wherever great podcasts are found. We love feedback. So if you like this episode, or even if you didn't, please give us a rating and a review so we can keep making great episodes for you. I'm Lindsay.
I'm Emily.
And thanks for getting nerdy with us on Beauties and Headcanons.